Okay, just to make sure we are recording. Okay, so the recording in progress. Okay, we are recording, right? Just to make sure.
Uh, yeah, I think yeah, we are.
Okay, we are. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just pull up. Wait, why isn't there we go. Okay, okay, we're gonna start in three, two, one, and zero. Good afternoon, Miss Lynch. Thank you so much for your time today. I want to start off by asking a simple question. What if we hire someone who looks great on paper, but later the public sees something about them that damages our reputation? Well, that's exactly the situation we're facing with Chris Lindsay. Chris is a final candidate for the role of VP of Communications. On the surface, everything checks out. Strong resume, great referrals, solid interview performance. But when we take a closer look at his public social media, we found some serious red flags, including pictures of him at, excuse my French, wild parties, young women in bikinis, and definitely most concerning, a post where he's bragging about drinking and driving, something that's not just reckless, but also illegal. And this really isn't just private information. This is stuff for anyone on the internet to see, including our customers, stakeholders, and even employees. And it most certainly does not reflect the values we've built at CVS Health. So the bigger question becomes, should we consider public social media when making hiring decisions, especially for leadership roles? We strongly believe the answer is yes. And Miss Lynch, public social media, according to Merriam-Webster, refers to any online content that's openly visible, no passwords, no privacy settings, just out there for the world to see. And cultural fit, based on CHRM's definition, is how well a person's values, behavior, and communication style aligns with an organization's mission and ethical standards. The framework for making this decision should be centered around protecting CVS's brand, ensuring ethical leadership, and minimizing reputational risk. In today's world, social media is not just about, it isn't just personal. It's part of your public identity. So hiring someone like Chris would put CVS's brand and credibility at risk. And as VP of Communications, Chris would be one of the most visible leaders in our company. What he does, especially online, matters and it reflects directly on us. A recent article from Harvard Business Review says companies must assess a candidate's digital footprint to evaluate whether their values align with corporate values, ethics, and brand image, particularly for executive roles. And that's exactly the type of role that Chris is pursuing, VP of Communications here at CVS. And it's not just a theory, because a career build survey found that more than half of employers, 54%, have already rejected candidates based on what they found online. So this is not rare. This is not an extreme policy. It's a responsible hiring, and it's too common in today's world. And here's why it really matters to us. And that's because CVS is a trusted name in health and wellness. People come to us expecting care, responsibility, and integrity. If a post from one of our executives, such as a VP of Communications, resurfaces, especially one bragging about drinking and driving, it really won't just look bad. It could destroy trust and create PR crisis and make people question our values. So, Miss Lynch, today we recommend to you two things. First, we should remove Chris Lindsay from the candidate pool. And second, we should adopt a formal policy to review public social media profiles for all executive level hires moving forward. Because this is not just about policing people's private lives, it's about making a smart, ethical, decisions based on the public image that they have chosen to create and post out to the world. Miss Lynch, we believe character is just as important as credentials. And what someone shares publicly tells us a lot about the kind of leader they will be here at CVS Health. Thank you again for your time, and this will conclude my argument.
Okay. Thank you. Imagine this. You've applied for your dream job, you're qualified, and you've prepared for the interview, but then you get rejected. Not because you're not skilled enough, but because of something you've posted online years ago, like a personal belief or a behavior that has nothing to do with the job. Unfortunately, that is becoming more common as many companies uses social media screening candidates. But is this the right way to choose who gets hired? Social media screening is becoming more widespread. A 2021 study from Harvard Business Review showed that 70% of employers check out applicants' social media profiles. While this may seem like an easy way to learn about candidates, it brings up a serious concerns about fairness, ethics, and privacy. By using social media to make hiring decisions, employers might unintentionally introduce bias and discriminations. So, should employer really be using social media when hiring? I argue that they should not. First, let's define a couple of important terms. Social media screening is when employer look at an applicant's social media profiles, such as Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, to get a sense of their personality or qualifications. But this can cause problems. One key issue is discriminators hiring practice, where employers might make a decision based on personal factors like race, religion, or political views. These are protected by law, and using them in hiring decisions actually is illegal. The main issue here is whether social media should even be used when making hiring decisions. While it can give some info or information about candidates' character, it also opens the door to bias and privacy concerns and privacy violations. That's why we believe employers should not use social media as a primary tool into hiring process. Let's begin with legal and ethical risks. Researcher from Harvard Business Review shows that many employers sometimes, without meaning to, use personal information from candidates' social media to make decisions. Things like religion, political views, or even race, these are protected characteristic under anti-discrimination laws, and using them to judge someone's qualification is illegal. Why is this a big deal? If an employer sees something on candidates' social media that reveals religion and political opinions, they might make unfair judgment about the person. But that has nothing to do with whether the person is qualified for the job. By using social media, employers risk lawsuits or discrimination that could damage their reputation. For example, imagine an employer sees a post from candidates that expresses a political opinion. They might think that the candidate won't fit well into their company's culture and reject them based on that opinion. This is unfair, and employers should focus on only the qualifications and skills that matters for the job, not personal opinions or beliefs. The next problem is bias and unfair comparison. Not all candidates use their social media in the same way. Some post frequently and openly, while others have a little to no online presence. Um, some candidates might even use fake names to protect their privacy. This creates unfair advantage or disadvantage for some candidates. Think about a candidate like Chris, who has a solid professional profile, but very little on social media platforms. Now, think about another candidate like Alex, who posts regularly about personal views or hobbies. Should Alex's social media activity be a factor into hiring decisions, or should it be about qualifications and experience? Social media can also reveal irrelevant information like relationship status or political views that has nothing to do with the job performance. Employers shouldn't base hiring decision on these irrelevant details. They should only focus on skills, qualifications, and experience that actually matter for the job. Sometimes candidates have private social media accounts or they use fake names. This only makes the process way harder and less effective. Social media platforms don't always provide the information that recruiters need to make good decisions. Focusing on qualification, experience, and job related skills is more efficient to use of time and make decisions to hire someone. So, lastly, I would say social media screening creates legal risks, leads to bias and unfair comparison, and waste valuable time. Employers should stop using social media as a primary tool in hiring decisions. Um, Instead, they should focus on what really matters, and that is a candidate that qualifies for the job, a candidate that has the experience and the ability to do the job. Thank you.
Thank you, Kadest. So your argument really sparked a question for me, and I would like to ask if we knowingly ignore public red flags like bragging about drinking and driving, and that behavior later becomes a public scandal. How would you justify to our customers and stakeholders that we chose not to consider this information during the hiring process?
I understand the concern, but checking social media for red flags can overstep privacy boundaries. And if a problem like drinking and driving comes to light water, companies could address it directly with the employee based on the company's policy. The focus during hiring should be on professional qualification and behaviors, not private social media activities. It's about balancing privacy with responsibilities and taking action when necessary without overreacting into personal lives. Yeah. And my question to you is, how do you justify using personal information from social media, like someone's political beliefs or personal opinions, into hiring decisions when it has nothing to do with the job performance and can lead to discrimination?
Well, Kadest, to be clear, this is not about someone's political opinions or personal opinions. This is about publicly posted behavior that reflects their judgment. And in this case, it raises some serious red flags. I mean, Chris Lindsay wasn't flagged was not flagged for a personal stance that he gave on an issue. He was flagged for publicly bragging about drinking and driving. And that's not just bad optics. That's reckless and illegal, as I mentioned earlier. And when you're up for a leadership role, what you put out to the public matters. And as a VP of communications, you should represent CVS Health both inside and outside of work. And if his public actions were to show poor decision making, then how can we trust him to lead and protect our brand? So this really isn't about some extreme policy or about political opinions or about personal opinions of his. Uh, and as I mentioned earlier, 54% of employers already take a look on social media when hiring. So this is common. This is not something rare or has something that is very extreme. The Harvard Business Research study also showed that companies should assess a leader's presence in social media because it directly affects public trust. So leadership is not just about qualifications, it's about judgment and character. So if Chris Lindsay shows bad judgment, then how can we just ignore this and pretend that it does not matter? And this will conclude it.
Mhm.